The summer of 1945 found the surviving architects of the Third Reich in a state of suspended animation, a purgatory of concrete and barbed wire. They were not in standard prisoner of war camps. They were in Allied interrogation centers, the most famous being Ashcan in Luxembourg and Dustbin in Germany. Here, the captured elite of the Nazi war machine, field marshals, generals, admirals, ministers, and industrialists, were held for debriefing. Their war was over, but a new, more subtle conflict had begun, the battle for historical narrative and scientific advantage. It was in these sterile, closely monitored rooms that the first, fragile whispers of a new kind of weapon began to circulate among them. It was 6:32 in the morning when I saw it. My alarm hadn't even gone off yet. The faint blue glow of the phone was the only light in the room. Normally, I'd ignore notifications until coffee, but something about the subject line caught my eye. From Daniel Ross, attorney at law. Subject, call me immediately. It's about your daughter. Those words cut through my half-asleep brain like a knife. My stomach twisted. My first thought, she was in an accident. My second, she'd done something terrible. I sat up, the blanket falling away. My heart was already pounding. Emily had just turned 21, living in her first apartment, working part-time while taking college classes. She was responsible, or at least, that's what I'd always believed. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and was about to call when something strange stopped me. At the bottom of the email was a line I'd never seen before. Confidential, legal matter. Not urgent, not emergency. Legal. Whatever this was, it wasn't ordinary. For a moment, I just sat there staring at the words. The room felt colder. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen, the wind brushing against the window pane. Everything was still, except the chaos inside my head. I replayed the last conversation I'd had with my daughter. It was 3 days ago. She'd asked if I could transfer her some money, said her student loan payments got messed up. I didn't even question it, just wired her the amount. That's what dads do, right? But now, as I stared at that email, something in me shifted. The memory of her nervous tone, the way she avoided my eyes on the video call, suddenly made sense. I called the number in the email. It rang twice before Daniel picked up. Mr. Barnes. His voice was low, careful, like he was choosing every word. Yes, it's me. What's going on? Is Emily okay? There was a long pause, the kind that makes your skin crawl. She's physically fine, he said finally. But we need to talk. Privately. I felt my throat tighten. What do you mean privately? I'm her father. Just tell me. He sighed. You should come in, sir. This isn't something I can explain over the phone. My grip on the phone tightened. Daniel, don't play games with me. Is she in trouble with the law? Another pause. Then, quietly. Yes. The air left my lungs. I couldn't speak. He continued. I received a call early this morning from an investigator. Your daughter's name came up in connection with a financial case. She's not the main suspect, but things are complicated. Financial case? Emily? That didn't even make sense. She could barely manage her bank app. I don't understand, I said. She's just a student. She doesn't even own a credit card. That's part of the problem, he said. Someone's been using accounts under your name. Transfers, deposits, significant amounts. And Emily's signature appears on some of them. I froze. My name? My accounts. Yes. We need to verify whether you authorized any of these transactions. It was like the floor dropped out beneath me. No, absolutely not. What are you talking about? When did this start? He shuffled papers on his end. According to what I've seen, about 6 months ago. 6 months. That was around the time she met him, Ryan. The boyfriend I never liked. I remember the first time I saw him. The fake charm, the designer jacket that looked too new, the smirk that didn't reach his eyes. He'd called me sir, but had that glint, the one that said I don't respect you. Emily was blinded by it, of course. First love always is. And now this. Daniel, I said, my voice barely steady. Are you telling me my daughter is being accused of stealing from me? I'm telling you that your financial identity has been compromised, he replied carefully. And right now, Emily's name is directly tied to the account in question. Whether she did it knowingly or not, we don't know yet. I pressed my hand to my forehead. My pulse was hammering. What happens now? I whispered. I've requested a meeting with the investigators. They're willing to give us 48 hours before they take official action. But you need to come in this morning. I'll be there in an hour. I hung up, sat on the edge of my bed, and tried to breathe. I remember staring out the window as the city started to wake up. Cars moved slowly through the fog, and for the first time in years, I felt old. Not because of my age, but because I suddenly realized how little I knew about my own daughter. I'd spent years providing, fixing, protecting, but somewhere along the way, we'd stopped talking. She'd stopped trusting me. Or maybe I'd stopped listening. I poured a cup of coffee, but didn't drink it. I just held it, trying to ground myself in something familiar. Then, the paranoia started creeping in. What if she was guilty? What if she got involved in something she couldn't get out of? What if the man she was dating, that slick-talking parasite, had dragged her into his mess? I'd seen it before. I'd worked hard all my life to build something stable, a business, a home, a future. And now, one email had the power to tear all of it apart. When I finally grabbed my keys and headed for the door, I stopped by the family photo hanging in the hallway. It was from her high school graduation, me, her, and her mother before the divorce. Emily's smile was pure, innocent. She was holding her diploma like it was a golden ticket. How does that bright-eyed girl become the center of a legal matter? The drive to the law office was a blur. My thoughts raced faster than the car. I imagined every possible scenario, from fraud to blackmail to something even darker. I kept rehearsing what I'd say when I saw her. But deep down, I already knew something had broken. By the time I parked, my coffee had gone cold. I stepped out into the chill morning air, the weight of that single sentence. Call me immediately. It's about your daughter. Still echoing in my mind. I didn't know what truth was waiting for me inside. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, my life, and hers, would never be the same again. When he answered, his voice wasn't his usual calm, rehearsed lawyer tone. It was low, heavy, the kind of voice people use when they're about to drop a truth that will change everything. Mr. Barnes, he said slowly, I need you to stay calm. Your daughter is involved in something big. Those words hit me harder than I expected. My grip on the phone tightened. My throat went dry. What do you mean involved? I asked. He hesitated. I could hear papers rustling on his desk, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights in the background. It felt like the pause lasted an eternity before he finally spoke. She's been receiving money, he said. Large sums. And it's connected to an ongoing investigation. I sank into the nearest chair. My knees almost gave out. Receiving money? I whispered. From who? That's what we're trying to determine, he said. But the issue is where the money went through. Some of the transactions trace back to accounts under your name. It felt like someone had poured ice water into my veins. My name? You mean my business accounts? He didn't answer right away. That silence was enough to confirm it. Mr. Barnes, he continued carefully, I received a notice from a federal contact this morning. They've traced a chain of financial transfers, several $100,000, through an account associated with your construction company. But the registered user on the digital platform is your daughter. I couldn't breathe. I built that company from nothing. Every nail, every paycheck, every long night. All of it to give Emily a better life. And now, somehow, that same company name was sitting in an FBI file with her signature attached to it. This can't be real, I said. There must be a mistake. I wish I could say that, he replied. But the documentation looks legitimate. The FBI believes she's part of a laundering chain. We don't know if she's aware of it, or if someone's using her as a proxy. A laundering chain. The words felt foreign, cinematic, like something out of a crime show. Not my life. Not my daughter's life. She's only 21, I said again, this time more to myself than to him. She doesn't even understand how taxes work. She barely manages rent. I understand, Daniel said softly. But, Mr. Barnes, ignorance isn't a defense. If she signed documents or handled transfers, she's liable, whether she knew the source or not. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to steady my breathing. She wouldn't do that. Not Emily. He sighed. You'd be surprised what young people can get dragged into when the wrong people whisper the right things. Ryan. The name hit me like a flash. That smug, too slick boyfriend. Always showing up in designer clothes, driving cars he couldn't possibly afford. I'd asked Emily once how he paid for everything. She said, he's into investments. Investments? Of course. That's what they all say when they're up to something dirty. Daniel, I said, this boyfriend of hers, Ryan Cole, could he be involved? Possibly. Do you have his full name or any of his information? I gave him everything I knew. His name, his supposed job in crypto trading, his Instagram handle, the fake smile in every photo. Daniel wrote it all down. "I'll pass this to the investigators," he said. "But you need to prepare yourself. If your accounts were used, the FBI will want to speak with both of you." I felt a cold sweat break across my forehead. "What do you mean, both of us? I haven't done anything." "I know," he said gently. "But right now, your name is on paper. That's all the system sees. Until we can prove otherwise, you're part of this mess." I remember the silence after that. I could hear my heartbeat echoing in the room. The faint hum of my computer monitor. Somewhere outside, a dog barked, life going on as if nothing had happened. "Daniel," I said finally, "what should I do?" "For now, don't contact Emily directly. Don't confront her. If she's innocent, we need to handle this carefully. If she's not, you confronting her could make her panic and do something rash." Not contact her? That went against every fatherly instinct I had. She was my kid, my only child. Every part of me wanted to drive to her apartment, grab her shoulders, and demand the truth. But I could hear the warning in Daniel's tone. "Come to my office at 9, he continued. "Bring your account statements from the past 6 months. We'll go through everything line by line." I hung up. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at my reflection in the black screen of my phone. My own face looked unfamiliar, pale, aged, hollow. The next hour was a blur. I pulled out every folder from my desk drawer, every email confirmation, every invoice. The more I looked, the worse it got. There were transactions I didn't remember approving. Digital transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, amounts just small enough to avoid red flags, but frequent enough to be deliberate. And the timestamps. Each one matched nights Emily had called me out of the blue. She'd say she was checking in, but now I realized. Those calls always ended with her asking about work, my company, or my business accounts. A pattern I hadn't seen until now. I sank back in my chair, my mind racing. Had she been gathering information for someone? Or worse, had she known exactly what she was doing? I didn't want to believe it, but the facts were sitting right there in my hands. By the time I got into my car, the sun was fully up. The world looked deceptively normal. Joggers on sidewalks, coffee shops opening, kids walking to school. And yet, in my head, everything felt wrong. I turned on the radio, but I couldn't listen. Every word, every song, just blurred into static. All I could think about was Emily. The way she laughed as a little girl. The way she used to run to me after school, waving her report card like it was treasure. Where did that girl go? I had spent my life protecting her from bad people. I just never imagined I'd have to protect her from herself. When I pulled up to Daniel's office, I sat in the car for a minute, gripping the steering wheel. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I knew, deep down, that this wasn't going to be some misunderstanding. There was too much evidence, too much coincidence. I closed my eyes and whispered to no one. "Please, let there be an explanation. Please tell me she didn't do this." But in my gut, I already knew. That call wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. The beginning of a truth I wasn't ready to face. The beginning of realizing my daughter had secrets I might never be able to forgive. I don't remember the drive to Daniel's office. I remember starting the car. I remember red lights turning green. But the moments in between were a blur of panic and disbelief. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every thought was a storm, violent, colliding, impossible to organize. When I finally pulled up, Daniel was already waiting at the door. He didn't shake my hand this time. He just said, quietly, "Come in." The air inside his office felt heavy, sterile. The faint smell of coffee and paper couldn't hide the tension sitting in the room. On his desk was a thick file folder, my name printed neatly across the top. Barnes, Michael, confidential. Seeing my name there, in that cold, bureaucratic font, made my stomach drop. Daniel didn't waste time. He opened the folder and turned it toward me. "You should see this," he said. Inside were screenshots, dozens of them. Bank transfers, payment authorizations, invoices, even scans of government IDs. And there it was, my face, my name, but not my signature. "She's been using your identity," Daniel said quietly. "We believe she's protecting someone." For a moment, I didn't breathe. I just stared at the pages as my brain tried to catch up. My name, my company address, my social security number, all of it used to open a second account. A secret one, the kind that doesn't exist until someone finds it. I reached for the papers, my hand trembling slightly. The transfers were small at first. $800 here, $1,200 there. But then the numbers grew. $10,000, $25,000. One even hit $50,000. Each transaction had a date beside it, and every date lined up with the same months Emily told me she was saving for college. She had lied. Every time she told me she was studying late, or taking extra shifts, or trying to be independent, she was using my name to funnel money through a ghost account. How? How is that even possible? I muttered. She doesn't have access to my files. My passwords. Daniel nodded, sliding another page forward. She didn't need your passwords. Whoever helped her knew how to set up shadow credentials. They created a parallel identity, using your business registration, tax info, and scanned ID. He pointed at the fake driver's license. My photo was there, but the signature, it wasn't mine. The details were slightly off, the address outdated, the expiration date wrong. It looked real enough for a bank that didn't dig deep. Jesus Christ, I whispered. She forged me. Daniel's tone softened. Michael, listen. I don't think she's the one who orchestrated this. The digital trail shows the first transfer originated from an IP address in another state. Someone else is pulling the strings. Ryan, I said automatically. It has to be him. He nodded. That's our working theory. But the problem is, she's complicit now. Her name's all over these documents. If this goes public, she could be facing serious charges. I leaned back in my chair, running a hand down my face. My God. He waited a moment before continuing. The FBI hasn't made an official move yet, but once they see this file, they'll assume you were either negligent or involved. I looked up sharply. Involved? You think I? He raised a hand. I don't. But they don't know you like I do. To them, this looks like father and daughter working together to launder money through a small construction firm. Clean income, dirty output. My stomach twisted. I'd spent my entire life building that company's reputation. Every client, every contract earned the hard way. And now, in the blink of an eye, my name was attached to something criminal. What do I do? I asked finally. Daniel sighed. We start by protecting you. Freeze your accounts. Shut down every business card, every open credit line. We'll file an affidavit proving your identity was stolen. Then we prepare for when the agents come knocking. And Emily? I asked. My voice cracked slightly when I said her name. He hesitated. You'll have to decide how far you're willing to go to protect her. Because if you tell them everything, if you confirm she had access, they'll come for her next. Silence filled the room. I stared down at the papers again, at the loops of her handwriting, the dates, the money. She wasn't just lying to me. She was using me. The realization felt like betrayal wrapped in heartbreak. I thought back to all those nights I'd wired her money without question. When she'd call me the best dad in the world. When she said she was proud of me. Was that all part of it? Did she know what she was doing? Or had Ryan convinced her it was harmless, just helping him with some transactions? I didn't know which truth hurt more, the possibility that she'd been manipulated or that she hadn't. Daniel's voice broke the silence. You need to prepare yourself, Michael. The investigation will move fast. The FBI doesn't play around when it comes to financial fraud, especially if they think interstate transfers were involved. I nodded, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, with Emily, the little girl who once sat on my shoulders to see the 4th of July fireworks, the teenager who cried when I missed her piano recital, the young woman who'd once promised she'd never lie to me. How did that girl turn into this? I stood up slowly. Freeze the accounts, I said. Do whatever you need to. Daniel nodded. I'll handle it. But Michael, he looked up at me. Don't call her yet. Not until we know more. I won't, I said. But I was lying. Because the moment I walked out of that office and sat in my car, I pulled out my phone. Her contact photo, the same one from 2 years ago, her smiling in front of her dorm, stared back at me. My thumb hovered over the call button for what felt like forever. I wanted to hear her voice. I wanted her to tell me it wasn't true, that there was some misunderstanding, some stupid mistake that could be fixed. But deep down, I already knew. You can't fake a dozen bank transfers. You can't forge your father's identity by accident. And as much as I loved her, love didn't erase the facts sitting in that folder. When I finally put the phone down, I didn't call. Not yet. I sat there, staring out the windshield, watching the city move on around me. People laughing, crossing the street, living lives untouched by betrayal. For the first time in 21 years, I realized something I'd never allowed myself to think. Maybe I didn't really know my daughter at all. The name Ryan Cole hit me like a punch to the gut. I remembered him, Tall, charming in that fake confident way, the kind of guy who could talk his way through any door and out of any mess. He had that salesman smile, the type that made people trust him before realizing their wallet was gone. Emily had brought him home once, 2 years ago. I didn't like him then. He was polite, yes, but too polished. His eyes never rested on one thing for long, always scanning, calculating. When he left that night, I told her quietly, "He's trouble." She rolled her eyes like any daughter would and said, "Dad, you judge everyone." Now I realized I hadn't judged enough. My lawyer slid a printed chat log across the desk. Every message felt like another stab in the chest. "Ryan, we're close. I just need you to move one more payment." "Emily, it's risky. What if my dad finds out?" "Ryan, he won't. Trust me, baby." I could almost hear her voice, uncertain, desperate to please him. My sweet, naive daughter who thought love meant loyalty at any cost. "Where is he now?" I asked. My lawyer sighed. "Ryan disappeared 3 weeks ago. The feds are still tracking him. They think he took nearly $2 million before vanishing." $2 million. The number felt unreal, like something from a crime drama, not my life. I rubbed my temples. And Emily? They want to question her. But she hasn't responded to their calls. That made my heart freeze. She wasn't missing. Not yet. But silence could mean anything. Panic. Guilt. Fear. I left the office and sat in my car for nearly an hour, staring at the dashboard. Every memory I had of her as a child came rushing back. The way she'd hold my hand crossing the street. The way she'd say, "You're my hero, Dad," when I fixed her toys. Now, my little girl was tangled in something dark, and I had no idea how to pull her out. I drove to her apartment. Her car was parked outside, lights off. I knocked once, twice, then used the spare key she'd forgotten I had. Inside, the place was a mess. Open drawers, clothes everywhere, a half-packed suitcase on the bed. She was leaving. Her laptop was on the table, still logged in. My lawyer's warning echoed in my head. "Don't interfere, it could complicate things legally." But a father's instinct doesn't care about legal advice. I opened her email. Dozens of messages from someone under the name RC Investments. The writing style matched Ryan's tone, arrogant, commanding. One stood out. "They're closing in. If your dad finds out, we're both finished. Burn everything." I read it twice. Burn everything. Then I noticed a draft she never sent. Just one line. "I can't do this anymore." My throat tightened. She was trying to escape him. Maybe too late. A noise behind me made me turn. The door creaked open. It was Emily. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Looking for you," I said quietly. "We need to talk." Her face went pale. "You read my emails." I had to. She shook her head, pacing. "You shouldn't have. You don't understand." "Then explain it to me." I snapped, louder than I intended. "Explain why your name is tied to stolen money. Why the FBI called my lawyer. Why you've been lying to me for months." She froze. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't cry. Not yet. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," she whispered. "Ryan said it was temporary. He just needed a way to move some money around. He promised no one would get hurt." "Move some money around?" "Emily, that's laundering. That's a crime." "I know," she shouted, finally breaking. "I didn't know at first, Dad. He said it was a business deal. Then I realized what it was, but I couldn't just stop. He said they'd come after me if I talked." My chest tightened. "Who's they?" She hesitated, then looked at the floor. "People he worked for. Real criminals. Not just hackers or scammers. Dangerous people." I felt the air leave my lungs. My daughter had been dragged into something far beyond her control. "You need to tell the FBI everything," I said. She shook her head. "You don't get it. If I talk, they'll come after you. Ryan said they know about you, your job, your house. He used your name because they'd never suspect a middle-aged accountant." That was the moment it all connected. I was the cover, the respectable man with a clean record, the perfect front. I took her by the shoulders. "Emily, listen to me. I don't care who they are. You're my daughter. We face this together." She finally broke down, sobbing into my chest. I held her like I used to when she scraped her knees as a kid, whispering, "It's going to be okay." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. The next morning, I went back to my lawyer. "We're going to the authorities," I said. "No more hiding." He nodded grimly. "You're doing the right thing." But that afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. "If you go to the cops, you'll never see your daughter again." I stared at the message for a long time. The words were simple, but the threat was clear. I looked out the window. A black SUV parked across the street, windows tinted. For the first time in my life, I realized what real fear felt like. Not fear for myself, but for the one person I'd give my life to protect. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, phone in hand, watching the shadows move outside. Somewhere out there, Ryan was hiding, or someone worse. And my daughter was the key to everything. But I made a silent promise right then. No matter what it takes, I'll bring her back. I'll end this. Because a father's love doesn't stop at fear. It becomes something stronger, something unstoppable. And as dawn broke through the blinds, I finally understood. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about redemption, hers, and maybe mine too. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual that night. Each second felt like a hammer against my chest. The papers on the kitchen table looked like the remains of something sacred: trust, love, the bond between father and daughter. Bank statements, screenshots, wire transfers, all with my name printed across them like an accusation. I didn't turn on the main light, just the small lamp in the corner. It threw a dim yellow glow across the room, soft enough to look almost forgiving, but not quite. When I heard the front door creak open, I didn't move. Her footsteps were slow, hesitant. She paused in the hallway, maybe sensing something different in the air. Then she stepped into the kitchen. Her face went pale the moment she saw the papers. For a second, she didn't speak. Her mouth opened, closed again. "Dad." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I can explain." "Then do it," I said, my tone flat. Too calm, maybe. The kind of calm that comes after all the shouting has already happened inside your head. She took a step closer, her eyes darting between the documents. Her hands were trembling. "I just wanted to help him," she said finally. "He said he was in trouble. He told me people were after him. I didn't know it was illegal." The word illegal hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to grab it, crush it, make it disappear. "Emily," I said quietly, "you forged my name." I pushed the papers toward her. "You lied to me." Her lips quivered. "I thought I could fix it before you found out. I didn't mean for it to go this far." My voice cracked. "Fix it? You think you can just fix this? You dragged my name into a federal investigation. Do you understand what that means?" She broke then, tears streaming down her cheeks, her voice trembling as she whispered, "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't know what else to do. I thought if I helped him, he'd stop." "Stop what?" I asked. "Using you? Lying to you." I slammed my palm on the table. The sound made her flinch. "He played you, Emily. And you let him." She covered her face with her hands, sobbing. For a moment, the anger inside me burned out, leaving only exhaustion. I looked at her, my little girl, the one who used to build Lego castles on this same table, now reduced to this trembling, broken version of herself. I sank into the chair opposite her. My voice was softer when I said, "Why didn't you come to me? You know I would have helped you." She sniffed, lowering her hands. "Because I knew you'd tell me to leave him. And I couldn't. Not then." I shook my head slowly. "You were protecting him. And now look what it's cost you." She bit her lip. "It's worse than you think," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He said if I stopped helping him, they'd hurt you. That's why I kept going. I thought I could keep you safe." Something inside me twisted. "Emily, what did he get you involved in?" She hesitated. "Money laundering." I didn't know that's what it was at first. He said it was just moving money between accounts, international clients, business stuff. Then he started getting paranoid. He said he owed people money. Dangerous people. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to shout again. "And now they're after you both." She nodded weakly. "They said if he doesn't pay them back, they'll come for me. And if I talk to the police." She couldn't finish the sentence. I closed my eyes. "Emily, we can't hide from this. It's already too far gone." "I know," she whispered. "I just didn't want to lose you." That line shattered me. All the anger, all the disappointment, gone. Just heartbreak. Pure, heavy heartbreak. I walked around the table, knelt beside her, and put my hand on her shoulder. She leaned into me like she did when she was 5, when her world still made sense. "We'll fix this," I said quietly. "Together." She shook her head. "You can't fix this, Dad. I already talked to them." My blood ran cold. "Talk to who?" "The men. The ones Ryan owed." Her voice trembled. "They told me to keep quiet. That they'd call when they needed me." I stood up sharply. "When was this?" 3 days ago." I turned away, pacing. Every instinct in me screamed danger. "Emily, you should have told me the moment that happened." "I was scared," she cried. You don't know what they're like. I ran a hand through my hair. The room suddenly felt too small, the air too heavy. My lawyer's warning echoed in my head again. Don't confront anyone yourself. But I couldn't just sit and wait. I picked up my phone. I'm calling the FBI. She grabbed my arm. No, please. If you do that, they'll know. They're watching me. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the fear in her eyes. Not guilt, not shame, fear. I lowered the phone slowly. All right, I said. But you're not going anywhere alone. You hear me? Nowhere. She nodded, crying quietly. I could feel her trembling even from across the room. For the next few minutes, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was thicker than any words could fill. I wanted to hold her, to tell her it would be fine. But I couldn't lie to her anymore. Not when our lives were hanging by a thread. Finally, I said, you need to give me every detail. Everything Ryan told you. Every name, every message, every transfer. She wiped her tears, nodded, and began talking. As she did, I took notes. Every bank, every alias, every date. The deeper she went, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't just about Ryan or Emily. It was part of something bigger, a web of accounts stretching across countries, millions of dollars moving like shadows through the dark. When she finished, she looked up at me. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath. I'm going to end this. Her eyes widened. How? By finding Ryan, I said. Before they do. Dad, no. But I'd already made up my mind. For months, she had been fighting this alone. That ended tonight. As I walked to the window, I could see my reflection in the glass, tired, aged, but determined. A man who had already lost too much to let fear take one more thing. Behind me, Emily whispered, I'm sorry, Dad. I turned back to her. You will be, I said softly, if you don't stay safe. That night, while she slept in her old room, I sat awake at the table, staring at the files again. Somewhere out there, Ryan Cole was hiding, and he had no idea what kind of storm he had just created. Because now, this wasn't about forgiveness. It was about a father protecting his daughter and confronting the man who destroyed her life. The morning light filtered through the blinds, painting pale stripes across my kitchen table, the same table that had seen tears, lies, and too many late-night phone calls. I hadn't slept. My coffee had gone cold hours ago. My mind replayed the night before on an endless loop. Emily's face, her shaking hands, her voice sang. I didn't mean for it to go this far. When my phone finally rang, I jumped. The caller ID read Mark Henderson, attorney. My stomach clenched. I already knew that no good news ever starts with your lawyer calling you at dawn. I answered. Mark. He sighed. That heavy, tired sigh of someone who's been awake all night too. They caught him, John. For a moment, I didn't breathe. Ryan. Yes. The FBI picked him up around midnight. He was trying to leave the state. I closed my eyes and let out a long breath. The room spun with relief, exhaustion, and something else, guilt. Finally, I thought. The nightmare was ending. But Mark wasn't done. There's more, he said carefully. And I need you to stay calm. My heart dropped. What is it? They found recordings on Ryan's laptop. Conversations between him and Emily. I froze. Recordings? Yes, he continued, his voice quieter now. She warned him. About the FBI, about the investigation closing in. It looks like she tried to help him escape. It felt like someone had taken a hammer to my chest. I couldn't even find words. You're saying she knew? It's possible she didn't understand the full scope, he said quickly. But John, the law won't care about her intentions. The prosecutors might consider her an accessory. I stared at the floor, unable to think. The word accessory echoed in my head like a curse. My daughter, my sweet, naive Emily, wasn't just manipulated. She was part of it. My grip on the phone tightened. What happens now? They'll question her, he said. They already have the tapes. The only thing that can help her now is full cooperation. Mark, I said, my voice breaking, she's not a criminal. I know, John, he replied gently. But to them, that's not what matters. I hung up without saying goodbye. My legs gave out, and I sank into the chair. The room felt colder than ever. I pressed my palms against my face, and for the first time in years, I felt something I couldn't remember feeling, helplessness. I thought about all the nights I stayed up helping her study, the time I worked double shifts so she could go to that art camp she'd begged for, the way she used to run into my arms after school, her backpack bouncing. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost her, or maybe she'd lost herself. When Emily came downstairs a few minutes later, she looked pale, hollow. Her eyes were swollen, her hair messy, a reflection of how I felt inside. "Morning," she whispered. I didn't respond. I couldn't. She sat across from me. What did the lawyer say? I looked at her, really looked at her. The same face I'd once watched fall asleep in the back seat after long car rides. The same hands that once held on to mine crossing the street. Now those hands were shaking. "They caught Ryan," I said finally. Her eyes widened. "They caught him?" I nodded slowly. "He's in custody. But there's something else." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "They found recordings, Emily. You warned him." The color drained from her face. Don't," I said sharply, raising my hand. "Don't lie to me again." Tears filled her eyes. "Dad, please." "I didn't mean." "You didn't mean to what?" I interrupted. "Warn a criminal? Obstruct justice? You told him the FBI was closing in. What were you thinking?" She sobbed, clutching her chest. "I thought if he ran, none of this would reach you. I was trying to protect you." Her words hit me like a knife. "Protect me? By helping him commit a federal crime?" "I didn't know what else to do," she cried. "He said if I told anyone, they'd hurt you." He said. I slammed my fist against the table, making her flinch. "Enough. You should have trusted me. You should have trusted someone. Not him." The silence that followed was deafening. Only the ticking clock dared to speak. She wiped her tears with shaking hands. "I was scared, Dad." "So was I said quietly. "Every damn day since you started lying to me." She covered her face, her shoulders trembling. I wanted to reach out, to hold her. But I couldn't. Not now. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "What's going to happen to me?" I looked away. "They're going to question you. You'll need to tell them everything. No more secrets, Emily." "Not one." She nodded slowly. "Will I go to jail?" The question broke me. I couldn't answer. "Dad?" she whispered again. I swallowed hard. "If we're lucky, no. But you have to cooperate. Promise me you will." "I promise." Her voice cracked on the word promise. I wanted to believe it, but the truth had already been stretched too far. That afternoon, Mark came by. We sat together in silence while Emily packed a small bag, just in case. "The FBI would call soon," he said. It was only a matter of time. Before he left, he pulled me aside. "John, I'll do everything I can for her. But you need to prepare yourself. The recordings are bad." I nodded weakly. "Do you think she meant to help him?" He hesitated. "I think she meant to help you." When he left, the house felt emptier than ever. Emily sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, staring at nothing. I wanted to comfort her, to say something, anything, that would make it right. But what could I say to a daughter who'd betrayed both the law and her father's trust? Finally, I sat beside her. "Emily," I said softly, "I know you made mistakes. Big ones. But no matter what happens next, you're still my daughter. You hear me?" She turned her head slowly, her eyes glistening. "Even if I go to prison?" I felt the weight of her words like chains around my heart. "Even then," I whispered. She leaned against me, crying quietly. I put my arm around her and stared out the window. The sun was setting, the light fading, just like everything I thought I knew about my life. But deep down, under all the pain, there was something else. A small flicker of hope. Because despite everything, the lies, the betrayal, the fear, she was still here, still breathing, still my little girl. And maybe, just maybe, this was the moment she'd finally start telling the truth. The weeks between her arrest and the hearing felt like living inside a storm that refused to move on. Every morning, I'd wake up hoping it had all been a nightmare. But the empty chair at breakfast, the quiet house, and the endless stream of legal documents reminded me otherwise. My daughter, my only child, was at the center of a federal case. The town knew, of course. They always do. The whispers followed me wherever I went. The grocery store, the post office, even church. Everyone spoke softer when I walked in, pretending not to look. But I saw their eyes. Pity mixed with judgment. To them, Emily wasn't just a young woman who made a mistake. She was a headline, a cautionary tale. The day of the hearing arrived cold and gray, like the world itself had dimmed in sympathy. I sat on the wooden bench outside the courtroom, clutching the edge so tightly my knuckles went white. My lawyer sat beside me, silent. There was nothing left to say. When they brought her in, I barely recognized her. Gone were the bright eyes that used to light up every room. Gone was the confident smile she wore when she got accepted into college. She looked small, fragile. The gray sweater she wore swallowed her whole, and her hair, once carefully styled, hung limp and dull. For a second, my heart wanted to protect her again, to stand between her and the world like I always had. But the truth stood between us. Heavy, unshakable, merciless. The prosecution spoke first. They described the transactions, the fake accounts, the warnings she'd given Ryan. Each word cut into me like a blade. I wanted to shout that they were wrong, that she wasn't that kind of person. But deep down, I knew they weren't wrong. Then her defense attorney stood. His voice was calm, sympathetic. She was manipulated, he said. Emotionally controlled by someone older, someone she trusted. She didn't profit from this crime. She was scared and in love. The words "in love" echoed in the room like a cruel joke. I remembered Ryan Cole, that smug grin, the way he'd shake my hand too tightly, look me straight in the eyes as if daring me to see what he was really doing. And I didn't. I failed to protect her from him, from the lies, the manipulation, and even from herself. Emily didn't look at me the entire time. She just kept her eyes on the floor, her fingers twisting the hem of her sleeve. I wanted her to look up, to meet my eyes, to show me something, anything. Regret, shame, love. But she stayed still, as if she didn't deserve to. When it was finally her turn to speak, her voice trembled. "I'm sorry," she said, barely above a whisper. "To the court, to my father. I never meant for things to go this far. I thought I was helping someone who needed me. I thought love meant loyalty, even when it hurt." Her words hung in the air. Love meant loyalty, even when it hurt. That was when I realized something painful. She hadn't done it for greed or thrill. She had done it because she wanted to be needed. And that broke me more than the crime itself. The judge sighed. An older man with tired eyes who'd probably seen too many families torn apart in that same room. "Emily Barnes," he said, "your actions were serious, but so is your potential for redemption. Probation, counseling, community service." The sound of the gavel echoed like a mercy I didn't know how to accept. She wouldn't go to prison. She'd get a chance to rebuild her life. And yet, as she turned to me, eyes swollen, tears streaking her cheeks, I felt no relief. Only exhaustion. When the courtroom emptied, she finally approached. "Dad," she said softly, "please say something." I stared at her. For a long time, neither of us moved. In her face, I saw the child I used to carry on my shoulders, the teenager who used to stay up late talking about her dreams, the little girl who once said she wanted to make me proud. But I also saw the lies, the forged signature, the warnings to a criminal, the trust she had burned like a bridge behind her. "Emily," I said finally, my voice breaking despite my effort to stay composed, "I will always love you. You're my daughter." But love and trust are not the same thing. She swallowed hard, her lips trembling. "I know. You broke something in me," I continued. "Something I don't know how to fix yet. Until you rebuild what you've broken, you're not my little girl anymore." The words hurt more than I expected. I saw her flinch, as if I'd struck her. Her shoulders shook as she nodded, tears falling freely now. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just whispered, "I understand," and turned away. When she left the courtroom, I felt an emptiness settle over me, vast, cold, and final, the kind that doesn't fade overnight. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd waited for her weeks ago, the same table where I taught her to balance a checkbook, where she told me about her first crush, where we laughed until we cried. Now, the silence was unbearable. I opened my wallet, pulled out an old photo. Emily at age 10, missing her front teeth, holding up a messy drawing of the two of us. Underneath it, in her shaky handwriting, it said, "Me and Daddy forever." Forever. I placed the photo on the table and stared at it for hours. Somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Maybe one day, we'd talk again without pain in our voices. Maybe she'd prove to herself, and to me, that she could be more than her mistakes. But not tonight. Tonight, I let myself grieve the version of my daughter I thought I knew. The one who believed in honesty, who called me her hero. And as I sat there in that quiet kitchen, the clock ticking louder than ever, I finally understood what it means for a heart to break without making a sound. Because mine just did. It had been months since the courtroom. The town had moved on, or at least pretended to. The whispers faded, the gossip found new victims, and the news cycle turned its gaze somewhere else. But inside me, nothing had settled. Every day felt like a quiet punishment. I went to work, came home, ate dinner alone, and stared at the same photograph on the mantel. Emily at her high school graduation, smiling like the world couldn't touch her. I'd memorized that smile. It was the one thing that still reminded me there had once been light in this house. Then, one morning my lawyer called. His tone was different this time. Not cautious, not burdened. Calm. "Mr. Barnes," he said, "there's something you need to see." An hour later, I was sitting across from him in his office, the same place where this nightmare had started. The same faint smell of coffee, the same polished oak desk, but the air felt heavier, like it was holding its breath. He slid a thin manila envelope toward me. "It's from the prosecution," he said. A statement Ryan Cole wrote before his sentencing. My chest tightened. I hesitated before opening it, afraid of what new wound it might reveal. But I had to know. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A signed confession. Ryan's handwriting, sharp, arrogant even in its final act. I began to read. To whom it may concern, Emily Barnes had no part in the money laundering operation. I used her trust against her. I created fake charity transfers under her name and manipulated her into signing off on them, making her believe it was legitimate. She thought she was helping me fund a project for veterans. She never knew the truth. Everything that happened, every lie, every forged document, was my doing. I stopped there, unable to breathe. He'd used her. All of it. The money, the fake accounts, the trail that led to me. Every single piece of it had been orchestrated by him. My lawyer continued, his voice measured, almost gentle. He gave this statement voluntarily before sentencing. "It matches the FBI's new findings. Your daughter's record will be cleared." Cleared. The word echoed in my mind like a cruel blessing. But instead of relief, I felt something else. Something darker. Guilt. Because for months, I had looked my daughter in the eyes and seen a liar. I'd believed the worst of her when she needed me the most. I'd turned my back when she was drowning and called it justice. I closed the folder and set it down slowly. My hands were trembling. She told me she was trying to help him. I whispered, and I didn't believe her. The lawyer sighed. "We all make mistakes, Mr. Barnes, especially when it comes to the people we love. But this wasn't just a mistake. It was betrayal, mine." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house reminded me of her. The creak of the hallway floorboards, the faint hum of the fridge, the clock ticking in the kitchen where we used to talk about everything and nothing. At 2 a.m., I found myself sitting in her old room. The air was thick with dust, the curtains half drawn. Her bookshelf was still lined with the same worn novels she used to love: To Kill a Mockingbird, The Catcher in the Rye, Jane Eyre. On the dresser, a faded photo of us at the beach. She's laughing, hair windblown, sunglasses too big for her face. I remember that day. She made me promise we'd come back next summer. We never did. I sat on her bed, holding that photo, and for the first time in a long time, I cried. Not angry tears, not frustrated ones, but tears that came from somewhere deeper, the kind that burned because they carry regret. When the morning light crept through the blinds, I knew what I had to do. I picked up the phone and dialed her number. It rang once, twice, then her voice. Soft, cautious. "Dad." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat tightened, words caught somewhere between pride and shame. "Emily." I finally managed, my voice shaking. "I got the letter. From Ryan." Silence. Then a quiet breath on the other end. "You read it?" I did. Another pause, longer this time. I could hear her trying not to cry. "I told you," she said, her voice breaking. "I told you I didn't know what was happening." "I know," I whispered. "God, I know. And I didn't believe you. I should have. I failed you." There was a soft sob, then a whisper so fragile I almost missed it. "You didn't fail me, Dad. You were scared. So was I." I closed my eyes, pressing the phone tighter to my ear as if that could make up for all the lost months, all the silence between us. "I'm sorry, Emily," I said, my voice barely holding together. "I'm so damn sorry." Through the static, I heard her crying, not the desperate kind from the courtroom, but something quieter, gentler. "I know," she said. "I love you, Dad." 3 simple words, and just like that, the weight on my chest began to lift. Not completely, but enough to breathe again. We talked for hours that night. About the trial, about Ryan, about how close we came to losing everything and each other. She told me about therapy, about how she'd been volunteering at a shelter, trying to make something good out of all that pain. I told her about the nightmares, the guilt, and how proud I was that she hadn't given up on herself. By the time the sun started to rise, I realized something profound. Forgiveness doesn't come from others. It starts with forgiving yourself for being human, for fearing, for doubting, for breaking. The terrible truth wasn't that Emily had betrayed me. It was that I had betrayed her. By doubting the person I'd raised to be strong and kind. By letting fears speak louder than love. But that night, as dawn painted the sky with gold and gray, something changed. The silence that had haunted our home for months began to fade. The weight that had anchored me to guilt loosened its grip. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like a father again. Not the perfect one I used to imagine, but the real kind. The kind who makes mistakes, learns too late, and still finds the courage to pick up the phone and say, "I'm sorry." And sometimes that's enough.